Meeting order, please. Please stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now for your cell phones, please. Ms. Settle, prepare the roll call.
Mayor Plummer.
Here.
Commissioner Brooks called, he will not be here today. Commissioner Roberts. Commissioner Galbraith.
Here.
Commissioner Gibson.
Here.
We have a quorum and ready for the transaction of business.
Okay, if you've got your agenda, we need to add one thing to the end. At the very end, we would need an executive session, so just be aware we'll do that towards the end of the meeting. First on the agenda, we have the approval of minutes for the regular meeting August 10th, 2021. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion by the mayor,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Galbraith. Roll call, please.
Mayor Plummer.
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a special presentation. It's from Mr. Joe LaCosta with RSA Advisors. Joe, you want to come forward?
Morning, Joe.
Good morning. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Great. So, I've been tasked with just doing a general review of your existing debt. I know we talked, I think it was a few months ago, about the borrowing process. We helped you put together that note issue for utility projects, which we ultimately talked about taking out with bonds. And I know that you're faced with a lot of infrastructure needs, some requests for contributions towards a park project, and this is not meant to be an exact science. I know there's a lot of moving parts. Whenever you do something like this, there's a lot of factors that we have to take into consideration as we try to determine ultimately how much you can borrow and not put yourself in a situation where you're over leveraged. Some of those factors include interest rates. We don't know the interest rate until we actually lock in your debt. Future revenues, we really haven't taken into consideration at this point what your revenues are doing the next 5 to 10 years. Are they going to continue to grow at the same pace, or are they going to be flat? Expenditures, we really haven't done any forecasts on your expenditures in terms of what's going to happen with your contributions for pensions and your costs for police and fire and all the basic services that you normally do. So this is somewhat of a snapshot, taking into consideration where you are now, where you've been historically, your existing debt, and in hopes to continue the discussion of how much can we borrow. So I think you have in your packet this right here, this what we call our preliminary analysis for discussion, which is really just as you would if you were looking at your own personal finances. It's a matter of how much money do you bring in, what do you spend, what's left over. Of that money left over, how much do you want to use to apply towards your debt? Okay, so what we try to do here is just summarize from your audits the amount of your total revenue that's been coming in per year, and you can see that from 2016 to 2020, it's gone from roughly 7 million to 9 million. Also, your expenditures, as expected, have gone up. So 6.2 million to 8.7 million. So that gets us just kind of an excess. What do we have left over every year after we pay our expenses? So from there, we want to back out any one-time extraordinary revenue items or expense items, and that's somewhat what we have done here in terms of the one-time revenues in 2020. I know we backed out the 1.394. We don't want to take into consideration revenues that you're not going to receive every year. And at the same time, each year when you have the opportunity for capital expenses to either finance those or to pay cash. And I think you've done a lot of cash, just paid in cash for capital items in the past. So we wanted to kind of make that a neutral as well. So we actually back that back into to give you a more, just again, a more general feel for what are you generating every year. Now, there's a certain amount of money that you're going to have to spend on, whether it be police vehicles or otherwise, either in the form of debt service or paying outright for capital items. So again, that's why this is not, everything here is not set in stone in terms of the numbers, but meant to kind of begin the discussion, something for us to kind of start working with. So when we get to, from there, a net available for debt service per year, ranging from $970,000 to $1,500,000, we took an average of that, a 5-year average of $1,300,000. Is that the correct amount? It's hard to say. I wouldn't anticipate that you would want to fully leverage all of your available cash flow, right? So in other words, when we look at whether it be your personal finances or the city, you want to have a certain amount of cushion every year, because you don't want to be in a situation where you've over-borrowed, you've got debt obligations. In order to meet your debt obligations, you have to go borrow more money because you don't have the ability to instantaneously raise taxes to cover your debt fall in the short run. So from there, again, this is I think a fairly aggressive analysis. We came up with a 5-year average of $1,300,000. So that's $1,300,000 is available. Okay, so what does that tell us? Well, how much can we borrow if there's $1,300,000? Taking into consideration again where rates are now, and rates are low. They're at historical low levels. We're at roughly 2% for 20-year money, 2.5% for 30-year money. What is the debt service on a $10 million project, a $15 million project, and a $20 million project? So I've outlined those here. Now, in terms of what's my number, I'm hesitant to throw out a specific number without knowing, again, a little more detail, diving in a little more, because we also have to take into consideration your existing debt service that you have. Now, some of that is coming off in 5 to 10 years, but you have existing debt obligations. You have the $2.5 million note that we've done that you're going to have to start amortizing. So that's going to come off. But certainly, if your average is $1,300,000, you want some cushion below that. So you're below 20 and possibly 10 million and up. 10 million, and I'll just say, is a really big number. And anything below and 20 is what, in my opinion, puts you in a situation where you're potentially over leveraged. So your range is somewhere in there, and that's a big range. But again, this is meant to be kind of a starting point. The other factor in terms of interest, in terms of how much your debt service is going to be, that's going to impact annually, would be how long you pay that back over. Are you paying it back over a 20-year, or are you paying it back over a 30-year, or some type of blended amortization depending on the projects? So most capital projects, we will do 20 to 30 years. If it's bricks and mortar, say a water treatment plant or sewer treatment plant, it's really more about the estimated life of the asset. We wouldn't want to do a police vehicle more than 5 years. We wouldn't want to do a fire truck more than 10 to 15, or a street sweeper 10 years. But you can kind of blend all of that into a borrowing. The other factor, as we look down to the next box, would be the utility fund. Ideally, when we do this analysis, we would have what we would call a cash flow and a positive debt coverage of somewhere at a minimum of a 1.25. In 2016, you were at a 155, but you can see in 2020, you were at a 0.64. So your utility fund is,
Joe,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So 1.55, that's a ratio percentage? What, can you
Mhm.
just explain what that means?
So it's simply when you just take the available available funds for debt service per year and divide by your debt service. Yep. You want to, and again, when you are selling revenue bonds out there, whether it be for water and sewer utility or toll road or any type of a bonded revenue bond, generally there's a minimum debt service coverage, and there is associated with that debt an ordinance that you pass that says I will maintain a minimum debt service coverage. And in fact, KIA requires 1-to-1, my understanding. So it looks like that you're below that on your utility.
So you want that number high? It's high.
Yeah, so you want the net available debt service number to be higher or your debt service lower. The way to get that net available for debt service higher is either increase revenues or lower expenses. And the way you increase revenues are more people buying water, or you raise your rates. So your utility fund as it stands is not self-supportive, in my opinion, based on the 2020 cash flow. And really not even based on 2019 and barely in 2018. I don't think that comes to a surprise to any of you. I hope not.
We have undergone a rate study and moved to balance that out over a 3-year period without a significant increase in people's rates.
Yes.
We're doing it over a 3-year period. It amounts to about $15 a year on an average utility bill.
We've adjusted the rates so that water, sewer, and electric are all should be self-sustaining and not let one department fund the other one, be a positive for the other one. So we've tried to adjust those rates so that the water rate will be a positive at the end of the year, wastewater and electric, all 3 of them.
Right.
So
That just took effect about 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
I think typically we will see that generally the water side is a more positive cash flow than sewer with communities we've worked with. Electric generally is pretty positive. Gas, you have that, but that's not the case here. So I know that you are looking at a lot of utility infrastructure projects. Typically, when we do utility projects, we pledge only the utility revenues, and with that pledge, we guarantee a coverage of a 1.25. So that's really not an option for you at this point on utility projects. In order to even borrow money for your utility projects, you would have to pledge your general fund, meaning in the event that there's a shortfall, all the other revenue sources that you have coming into your general fund would be pledged and used to support that debt. Otherwise, your property taxes, occupation tax, things of that nature are technically not even on the hook for a revenue bond. Although I will say, when we go to structure debt, it is not uncommon to add a general obligation pledge, but you still generally want to have your utility fund be self-supportive. And part of that gets back to, we want, as a community, we would like to have the users paying for the service. So in other words, if the users of water, the utility fund is being supported by property taxpayers, there can be kind of a misalignment of the use and the revenue. If that makes sense to you. Yeah. So you want, the people that use water and sewer to pay for water and sewer and so on. But again, to understand where you are and what you're facing in terms of, you got to be fair to everybody that is paying their monthly bill, and I'm sensitive to that. I'm just going to give you the overview of ideally what you would like to have. So again, back to, and maybe I should just pause and let you guys ask some general questions at this point. Yep.
The one thing that I did, Joe, when I got that, is I looked at revenue, expenditures, and then the net available for debt service. And I took it from 2016 to 2020. I used all of those numbers. And what I found is that revenue from 2016 up through 2020 increased 33%, but total expenditures increased 39%. And our net available for debt service was only up 13%.
Right.
Based upon using, after you add back in your revenue and your capital outlays and deduct your one-time income streams. So it told me that, you know, but our net revenue for debt service was nowhere keeping close to what our revenue and expenses were. So if we've got a 33% increase in revenue, but a 30, so we're headed downhill, I guess. And I didn't try to compare 16 to 17, 17 to 18. I didn't care. I'm not saying I don't care about that. I didn't care about that. I was just caring about where we are today.
Right. And it's hard to project the future. And there are communities that do that. There are generally larger communities that have a bigger staff, and they have all these accountants potentially. And but you can generally at least look at a trend and see, as we try to do here, where are we going in terms of revenue. Revenue is a positive trend, expenses that's a negative trend, and that effect is, okay, we're still positive. Where will that be in 3, 5? Because keep in mind, you're making a commitment that potentially eats up your bonding capacity for the next, this is not, a 5-year necessarily decision. This is a 20, 30-year decision. So keep that in mind. I'm in the business of loaning money. I'd love to loan you the $30 million and say it's great and move on, but I also don't want you to get into a situation to where you've totally used up all of your bonding capacity. 5 years from now, you're in a situation where you need to borrow for some other type of project, and you don't have the ability to do that without a significant revenue increase, because it's hard to reduce expenses.
Have you been invited to meet with the person in your same capacity with the county to talk about this city park that we have?
So, no, I guess I formally have not been invited or informally to sit down.
So that is supposed to happen. So they're supposed to invite you, Brad, along with, I think it's Keiko, is the company they use, to sit down and kind of go over all of that together.
Right. So, and I understand the county has a park project, and I understand you're looking at that.
Yeah, city and county.
Right, and I understand you have other projects. I mean, I don't set policy. That, you guys determine how if you have available $10 million, you determine how you want, and that's kind of what you're going to have available for the next, you think, 5 to 10 years, absent any extraordinary revenue increase. It'll be up to you guys to determine how you invest that, whether it be infrastructure or parks or staff.
Because what they have talked about is that the EDA can be bonded, and then the city and county will make payments to the EDA to pay that park project off.
And keep in mind, whether you're the direct obligor or you're signing a lease or co-obligor, the obligation is the obligation. Right. So if the EDA borrows the money and you're paying them and you've made a 30-year commitment for debt service, it's no different than you borrowing the money yourself.
But it's the bonding. It puts the bonding issue, they said, on them. So that way the city and county still have.
No, and people get confused, and it's understandable because people get confused about the $10 million cap, and let's just table the $10 million bank qualification for a little bit. Again, if the EDA or let's just say the county borrows the money, or the EDA, and you agree via a lease or in any other shape or form to pay part of that debt service, and you made a pledge to do that, whether it's a general obligation pledge or revenue pledge, that is still your obligation.
Of course.
Okay, so it doesn't change it in terms of putting that, you said putting that on the EDA. I'm not sure it doesn't change that. The EDA has, I'm guessing, very little ability to borrow without you supporting it and agreeing to pay the debt service.
That's correct.
Okay, so they're really, their name may be on it as issuer, just as you were issuer for bonds for the diocese. But you had no, in that case, when you're the issuer for the diocese and other projects that you've done, you had no legal obligation to pay that. In the scenario I believe they're talking about, you do have a legal obligation to pay those. Okay,
We're gonna partner with them.
right.
Yeah.
So whether you borrow, then it comes down to, if you have a legal obligation to pay it, what is the most efficient way to borrow it? And putting it through the EDA that has no assets is probably not gonna be more efficient than you borrowing it in your own name.
Well, that's why you all need to have that meeting together and that way everybody can kind of tell their part.
Right. And I don't know if they've looked at your finances. My analysis will not change.
Right.
Because I'm looking at your ability to repay the obligation,
Yes.
whether it be a sublease to the EDA who pays it, to the county that pays it. It doesn't change this.
Right.
Okay.
And likewise, we haven't seen the county's financials.
Right. Right.
So,
That would be a consideration for both of you if you did do a joint project, depending on how that was structured. If one of you did not have the funds available, would you be on the hook not only for your portion, but their portion as well?
Yeah.
And I don't know, but you wouldn't even get that far if that number was such that you couldn't afford it regardless.
Yes.
Right. But just to clarify, changing who issues the bonds, whether it be the county or the EDA, does not change your obligation to pay. And the debt bank qualification number only is a factor when you are lending your name to other entities that want to do a bank deal. And that's not, so that's really not going to be a factor here, the $10 million cap. So, I think, where you go from here is you've got, I assume, or you're working on a list of capital needs, and that's probably a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year list of capital projects that you've got. And then you're taking this and you're saying, okay, well, Joe came up with this number. I think our number is really more like another number, higher or lower. Let's work through it. And then you say, okay, we come up with our number per year is not $1.3 million, let's say it's $1.2 million. Well, we don't want to pledge 100% of our available cash flow for 20 or 30 years and not be able to do anything for 30 years. So what are we comfortable pledging of that? And let's say that number comes up to 10 million. Okay, so now we have $10 million available. Here's our capital list. How do we want to allocate that $10 million? That's, I think, the steps that you would work through based on priority. And does that $10 million, does it go towards, water, sewer, landfill project, the park? That's what you, as, at the city, have to determine what is a priority, how's this money best spent, what's going to be best return, what has to be done.
And Joe, what's the factor as far as like our savings account or building up the rainy day fund help to factor into this as well too?
That, and I get that question a lot in terms of how much should we have in cash and in savings, whether it's 20, 30% of your general fund. Certainly, the more money you have, the easier it is to borrow. Your ability to borrow and your ability to get a bond rating. It's a factor of, I think we went through some of this in the one presentation, your community size, your economics, the demographics, your ability to raise revenue, your balance sheet, all those factors. But certainly, I would think with a general fund of, $8-9 million, you would want to have 20-30% of that in cash.
Yeah, so I look at, some of our capital outlays, and I know 2019 and 2020, we had a lot, but we also had our savings built up to where we could have paid those off. Still can pay those off today's date as well. But I do know that, once we get over financials, we'll see where our cash balance and stuff is at. I know, Stan, you say we're heading downhill, but I also too, when you look at our cash balances, we've significantly have been increasing that over the
Yes,
year.
but I was looking just at total revenue,
I agree.
just total revenue, just on the numbers all here.
Go ahead, Brad. I wanna
Yeah.
hear you.
Well, I'm just saying that, there are, not to say other options in looking at things, and, but as I said, that we're heading south or, other things are happening, I don't necessarily want to paint a doom and gloom for the public out there.
No, I'm
Because
not.
we had, like I said, we could have paid for a lot of these capital assets, over the last couple of years versus financing them.
You just chose to finance, we had some really good interest rates, but.
Yeah, exactly.
And revenue just continues to up and down and change.
Yeah, but I think that's the big thing that we need to start moving forward on is, we've got the historical data, but looking at 2021, I'm fairly close to getting those numbers where we can drop those in. Joe, you and I can kind of look those over, because I know we got a lot of debt paid off in the utility fund, in 21, to where we'll probably get back above 1.1 on these, numbers and stuff, a little bit closer to what we want to, or where we think we kind of need to be at, so.
And I'm glad you pointed out, I have not mentioned the fact, just, according to your 2020 audit, you have $5.5 million in cash. So when you look at, I've been looking at how much can you borrow, you can also obviously take some of that cash to the extent you're comfortable and apply it towards projects or paying down debt.
And I did hand out to everybody, you've got like a debt analysis. That number one is as of, the first page is as of June 30, 2021, how we ended up the year. And then also to the second page is, kind of where we've moved forward over the first 2 months of this fiscal year. It's adding in the street sweeper, and then also adding in the police cars, even though we really haven't taken possession of that 400,000 yet. So you kind of see that outline of us paying off our debt over the next couple of years as well. So and those numbers, just to confirm, Joe, those are not in the net available for debt service. So, if we're looking at 2020 of the 1.1 million, technically you would want to subtract out, let's just say the 313,000 we're going to be paying off in 2022. Correct. So once again, like kind of Joe's saying, we've already got some of that 1.1 million committed.
So that would be to take this analysis a step forward, would be to make sure that we agree on kind of where you are in terms of net available debt service, subtracting off what you've already committed, okay, in terms of existing debt. And then, and also included in that, so we really need to include the $2.5 million, because you're gonna have to take that out and pay that back. And realizing you're gonna get some savings on that, and that's gonna help your utility fund, but you still have to make that debt payment. So subtracting that off of that, and then at the same time, you have to be comfortable with kind of what percentage of that net available, based on historical averages, based on where we think we're going, are we comfortable leveraging? And that, then we can, based on where current interest rates, come up with that number again, whether it be 10 or 15 million, and then you get to, I think we're pretty close, you get to that amount of, okay, our number is 12 million, how do we want to spend it? And that, absent any other revenue items coming in other words, a property tax increases or increase in some other revenue source, insurance premium, whatever you're allowed to do, that's pretty much gonna tax it out for the next 5 years.
Ask a question about how you make projections. So some of these projects would result, well, are designed to result in savings to the city, like the water meters. So you're either going to see an increase in revenue or a decrease in expenses. So at some point, while the project has a hard cost up front of 2.5, the actual net cost to the city, we hope, is nowhere near that because you realize the savings. Right. So as you're doing this analysis from the financial end of things, are you allowed to account for any of that? And it may not matter if you're not approaching the debt ceiling.
Well, that would be, because you're at a 0.64 coverage, what my take on that would be, any of those savings you're getting will hopefully get you to break even. You know, you're not at a break even at this point. You're on your utility fund, net available for debt service is $359,000. Your debt service was $562. If I calculated that correctly. So hopefully that over time will get you to a break even, help get you to the break even along with the increase in rates that you put into place. But you can factor, yes, to answer your question, yes, you can factor it in, but I would not want to bank on that. Let's just call that cushion to get you back. Yeah, more in line.
All right, any more questions for Joe? Yes.
But Joe, so typically I know we've been focusing on the water and the sewer infrastructure, looking at those. And we're out, talk to us about how, if we move forward some of those projects, that some of the potential rate changes would help to kind of offset some of those costs, kind of like what Brian was saying, because I would just assume that, if we're going to move forward with some water and sewer projects, there's going to have to be some kind of a factor from the consumer to help cover those costs. I mean, you can't take, and I kind of agree with Stan on this point, you just can't take what we're doing today and run out and do a whole bunch of water and infrastructure. There's got to be some kind of a restructuring of certain things, user fees to help cover that.
So if you don't do that, then you're relying on your general fund for that. Right. So those are your options. Either you use your excess general funds to pay for utility projects, which I think you'd be forced to do in this situation, or you have to raise revenues on the water and sewer, which sounds like you've kind of gone through that.
We have, and that's, we chose to phase it in over a 3-year. We're in the first year of that phasing. But the other side that I see too is if a water project expands it where you have additional customers or additional sewer customers, that's other revenue you'd be gaining. So if the project involves 100 new customers, that's something we have to look at also. All right, any other stands, questions for Joe?
No, it's just not gonna be easy.
No, we've got more work to do, and plus the meeting, it's important that we get that meeting scheduled with the county, bond council.
I'll be glad to do that, meet with anybody on the other side, on the park project, your partner there. I'd like to continue to work through this with you and make sure that we're good on our numbers. I think we need to take that to the next step, and then
I think that's our intent, right, for him to continue on?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Joe, we'll try to get the meeting set up. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you all. You bet. You bet.
All right, next on the agenda, under old business, retention of an entity to assist in hiring of a new city manager. Commissioner Kissing.
Okay, so I sent out proposals to everyone on the commission, as well as the mayor and interim city manager. So what I found for 3, I sent you all the proposals so you could take a look. Then I went back a day or so later and kind of just did a summary, because I know everybody kind of, if you don't have time to read the whole thing, that way at least you can get, get a ballpark. So, and of course, Mike sent out the proposal for KLC. So the next move group was the one that, and this is their proposal. So the next move group sent, theirs is 24,000. They're focused on pro-development candidates, conduct the background checks on all candidates, not just the finalists, use aggressive networking to find candidates, build an email and attractive marketing piece about our city, and the job to send out to managers, deputies, and city managers, and contact them by phone to gauge their interest, coordinate all aspects of the in-person interviews in a boardroom. They like to take those finalists on a meal and on a tour of the city. They also work with the city to negotiate the salary and benefits to hire the best fit for our city. 100% replacement guarantee if the new hire leaves within 24 months. Their time frame, they said their most aggressive direct networking firm. It's basically the marketing piece for the city and the job. They advertise the job for 30 days and should have someone in place within 90 days, which would meet our deadline. So then the next one is GovHR. I also sent you all out their big proposal packet. They also have kind of a flyer that talks about, they have different levels of what they'll do, and they also do a very nice marketing piece that they send out to, they just don't put it on Indeed or someplace like that. They have all kinds of connections that they send them to. So the nice thing about this is that it, talks about our community. It gives all of the demographics and the statistics, quality of life, the community, what someone who might be from another state is gonna, see when they get here. It tells about the regional employers, the budget, they have a part which is very nice that talks about the ideal candidate, and of course that would be decided by this body. So very nice marketing piece. This, as we all know, is the company that hired our former city manager. They're a very professional looking company. So again, they have they have several different prices. They have a full scope, which is to develop this brochure and position announcement, post the position announcement to approved advertising sources, social media, emails, etc., candidate evaluation, top candidates selected. They narrow it down to about 10 to 20. They conduct Skype interviews, reference checks, social media, and Google searches, which that, in this today's climate is very good. They schedule the candidate interviews. They do the full background screenings, the reference checks, and new media search conducted. They present draft interview questions. The consultant will facilitate interview of the top candidates, assist with negotiations of to offer to selected candidates, and they notify all the applicants of who basically got the job. So, that's something which is nice, because sometimes people that don't do that, you never, hear who got it. Then that one is $22,500. Then they have a limited scope proposal for $19,500, which they develop a flyer similar, but it's a 2-page instead of this whole bigger marketing piece. They still do use their social media sources, extensive email outreach, candidate evaluation, top candidates, again, 10 to 20. They conduct Skype interviews, reference checks, social media, and Google of the select group, the presentation of candidates with client pool narrowed for the interview. They notify all applicants of the appointed candidate. Then they go down to a virtual, which is $8,000, and a professional outreach, which is $3,000. So their scope or their time frame is about the same. They attached the example, which I showed you all, of the announcement from Paducah. Their time frame is 3 months, or 3 months and 2 weeks at most. So then the next one was Slavin Consultants, and we have dealt with the person that they would be using for their recruitment with our wage and salary study. So I didn't do a big in-depth on theirs. And then, of course, KLC, which Mike sent out, is here. And that is more of a hands-on for us if we go with KLC. That is $11,000. They will meet with us to come up with a hiring committee from the commission or all of us. The committee will have to narrow the field of candidates and conduct the interviews. KLC will assist with the city in creating a job description. The city itself has to advertise the position, field all the questions from potential candidates, receive all the resumes. KLC will develop interview questions for us. The final group of candidates will take an online assessment. The city will have to do all background checks. Committee will conduct in-person, and so that's us, will conduct in-person interviews with KLC consultant if the committee so desires. The city shall make the offer, and we will have to contact all applicants to tell them who is chosen. KLC will conduct an onboarding meeting with the new city manager and provide 4 one-hour executive coaching systems. Their time frame also is 3 months. So I didn't get any feedback except from Commissioner Roberts. She did say that she kind of felt that GovHR, and I agree with that. I think that they're kind of the one-stop shop. All of us are busy people, and this is going to be a very intensive search, so we can get the right person to lead the city in the future. So I guess where would you all like to go from here?
If you go to GovHR, which scope would you use? The top or whatever?
Well, I guess we would have to decide that, with, what we wanted to do with our budget. And if something is, more important than others as far as those pieces that they offer. Anything to you, Steve?
Yeah, I guess my question, and I've been thinking about this for some time. If we went with KLC, I guess my question would be, do we have the time and do we have the resources that would be able to, let's say, pick up the ball and run with this versus the difference in, and again, I think that could fall back on you, Mike, whoever else, us, and Aaron and everybody else here. It would all fall back on us to get this done versus is our time better spent to look at either look at next move or GovHR, Mike, I guess
I understand, I just, know from the past how we've done it, and this GovHR sounds like they do it all for you.
And honestly, with so much on your shoulders right now, it would
Yeah.
probably be
And you
nice
don't
to
need
not
any
have
more,
it.
and that's what I was saying, Mike, you don't need any more field pressure, whether you're gonna do it or you're gonna assign it to be done, you don't need any more.
If that's the wishes, Ms. Gibson, I'll take that as a motion to approve GovHR USA.
I'm gonna ask you.
Okay, we got discussion here.
I was wondering, what did we do last, when we hired previously? What kind of?
We have in the past, a lot of times used KLC.
Use KLC.
For guidance. And
Yeah.
and they sit in on interviews and set them up and did the work, and we use them. That's a lot of everything we do. They train us, they work with us, they're a very big part of what we do, day-to-day operations around here. But just because we've always used them, doesn't necessarily mean it's right.
Yeah, I just think it's time to go with another entity, because if you're looking at GovHR, they're going to possibly reach a diverse group of individuals. And so that's why I think we will need to branch out with another entity and just see what we get.
So,
And they also have a guarantee as well. And I think it's that same one, it's like within a year, if the candidate leaves or whatever, then they will.
They come back.
Yeah.
I think it's 24 months.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think the difference between the limited scope and the full scope is only $3,000. And for that,
Yeah.
they're giving you draft questions, doing the full background screening, which you don't have to do anyway. That's very little.
We outsource that. That usually costs about $1,500.
Right.
Because we don't.
That's half of it.
Yeah,
So you're
we
almost-
outsource that already.
I'll entertain that. Well, we need a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Roberts. Any more discussion on moving forward? See some, yes.
No, my sole intent is, we don't need to put any more pressure on, we got a lot of things on that way.
We do.
And Joe Lakofka's presentation there, we've got to work through that, and work through strategic planning, get the city manager hired.
Got our policy procedure stuff done, yeah.
Yeah,
We got all
that's-
kinds of stuff.
That's on page 10 or something, I know. But anyway, we gotta get some, to me, we gotta get, so anyway, Mike, so if you feel comfortable with that, that's okay.
Sure, I'll call the question, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Plummer,
Okay, now we will discuss what level.
Well, Brian
Brian
just said,
just
it's a
talked about
$3,000 difference in between the first and the second plan, so we were looking at a higher plan, right?
The motion was to go with GovUSA at the 22,500.
Okay.
Because Aaron just
You're the
said,
one that made the motion, right? Or-
No, no,
no.
Okay, okay.
So, no, I don't.
That's what I thought. He said let's make a
Commissioner
motion.
Dixon made
Okay.
the motion, I second it.
Okay.
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gibson,
yes,
motion carried.
What was the name of the company?
it's GovHR. Would you like to have this? We'll give you this.
Anything, I'm sure I get the name right.
All right, moving on with old business, we have the second reading of an ordinance related to streets and sidewalks.
Yeah, so, can I have these somewhat related and companion reads, as we talked about a little at length last time. So the first one deals with streets and sidewalks and allows for the process, I have to read permitting the next section. So, I can answer any questions, but need a motion second to move forward.
I have a motion from Commissioner Gibson
I'll second.
and a second from Commissioner Roberts on the update of the ordinances. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gibson, Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
motion carried.
Next, we have the second reading of an ordinance relating to peddlers and solicitors.
And so as we talked about last time, this updates part of the business code, the code of ordinances. It retains the peddler's license, adds a new transient merchant license. We inserted the $75 free visit that you all had agreed upon last time. Really, there's a follow-up that needs to be made, a follow-up ordinance that would need to be made within, I think this is page 13 in your packet, but it would be one of the new sections that is added, which would be when festivals or other events are occurring, they would get a kind of an umbrella license for that event, which would then cover all the vendors. So if you're a transient merchant and you attend an event that's covered under that event license, that doesn't count toward one of their 3 days. That's really a different discussion, something that you all need to adopt separately.
Use the term festival or something.
Correct. But we need to figure out what that cost should be. And you can tier it, it doesn't have to be, one-time cost for someone who has 5 vendors versus someone who brings in 100. So you can make it in levels or steps or grades or there he is. But unfortunately, in all of our discussion last time, we didn't land on that license.
Well, we can move forward with this. I'll entertain a motion to approve this ordinance as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion from the mayor,
I'll say.
second from Mr. Galbraith. The roll call, please.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gibson,
yes.
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
motion carried.
So for next time, and we'll draft an ordinance that will supplement this, what fee range Does one of you all just want to volunteer to help Ms. Settles and I write this next time?
Yeah, and
Oh.
I think we probably ought to add.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will input
From the
from
chamber.
From the chamber.
Yeah, I think the tiers need to be looked at for sure, because like, the Oldies Festival has 2 vendors. Whereas like the Pumpkin Festival has like 70.
Right.
And other entities we know maybe have a one event per year. Probably a good idea just to reach out to them, include them in the conversation. They know what you all are doing.
I don't mind to do like a temperature check with people.
All right. Can you get back with us before the next meeting?
Yes, sorry about that. I've been in and out of office a lot.
Okay, good. We'll move on to new business, action item. In your package, you'll, see a request from, Mike Smith, Public Works, who can't be with us today. What we'd like to do is surplus the old street sweeper and use govdeals.com. It's an online, system with it. We could auction this street sweeper off and get the most bang for our buck there. Need a motion to approve the surplusing of the 2006 Elgin Road.
And does that then just go back into his budget, what it's sold for?
Motion. Motion by Mr. Calvin.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Roberts. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes, ma'am.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have the first reading of an ordinance levying the fiscal year 2021-2022 real property tax. Brad?
Okay. Brian, is it okay maybe just to read all these and then kind of go over the rates?
Yeah.
Since this is just the first reading?
Sure.
Okay, that's fine. So, right now I've got the ordinance 21-01X. We'll get the official number for the second reading. An ordinance levying City of Paris and Baja taxes for general municipal purposes for the fiscal year 2021-22. On real property within the taxing jurisdictions of the City of Paris shall be at a rate of 0.1144 per $100 of assessed valuation. That's on page 17. Going to page 19 for personal property, North levying City of Paris, pardon the pronouncement of this word. Taxes for general municipal purposes for the fiscal year 21-22 on personal property, other than motor vehicles and watercraft within the taxing jurisdiction of the City of Paris shall be at the rate of 0.1652 per $100 of assessed valuation. Page 22 has got the third ordinance for general municipal purpose for the calendar year 2022 on motor vehicles and watercraft within the taxing jurisdiction of the City of Paris shall be at the rate of 0.17 per $100 of assessed valuation.
Okay, those are presented as the first reading. You will see them again, hopefully, the next meeting. If there is a correction, we can make those between now and then.
Well, and also what I want to go over too is I handed out a sheet that's got a bonding capacity and tax rates. There's some things to just kind of discuss at this point in time as far as on the tax and to look at. Our real property rate for last year was at 0.071. Working with KLC, and I got an email from them late yesterday. I responded to them and want to do a phone call, and I'll probably forward that on to you, the commissioners as well too, once I kind of get a clearer answer. But in his email for the real property, he actually says that we can use the substitute rate of 0.1092, or actually that's the defaulting rate outside of the compensating rate, because how these spreadsheets kind of go through and calculate what the potential revenue is, we have to stay fairly close to what our prior year rates were without increasing them too significantly. So on the real property right now, we have a substitute rate of 0.1092, and that is how the 4% increase of 0.1144 is calculating. So what I have done right now in the ordinance is put in the 0.1144 that would show doing the full 4% rate increase and giving us a potential, let's just say $650,000 in revenue. Technically, the formula, I've got to look and see that, but really it's technically like a 9.5 or 9.6% increase versus the overall 10%. And then same thing on the real property as well too. It's, the way the calculations run through is we can use the substitute rate. Our substitute rate is our default and compensating rate, 0.1594, which you'll see is a 5.7% increase compared to the estimated 111,000 that we collected, potential collection last year on the personal property. Once again, for the ordinances, I put in the increase up using the 4% rate to the 1.652 to give us a potential 121. So that's just kind of explaining where those rates are coming from and some additional analysis for you guys.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
So one thing this body added, I guess last year for the first time, was an early pay discount, like people are used to seeing with the county bill.
And we know we're real well, as I recall.
Right.
That's what they've been doing for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so, that'll be in the,
They'll be in the next, again, reading, second reading. Okay.
Everybody's in favor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it sped everything up.
Yeah.
We got our money a month, get your money a month or so in advance.
Now, Stephanie, I guess is when do you need the final rates? I mean, I know right now we're anticipating, obviously, the September 14th meeting to be the second and final reading, as long as we don't change any of these. If we change anything, then we have to, next meeting, do another first reading. And now we're at least one meeting ahead compared to last year. Okay, so if we don't,
Publish too.
yeah, so if we don't change anything between now and
We're
September
okay.
14th, we're good.
I think if you change, we're going to have.
A special meeting.
Hey, thank you, Brad.
Yeah.
Next, E, it's a recommendation to hire a full-time utility cashier. We've been without the second cashier for a number of years. We got notice that one of our employees is gonna be off for at least 6 weeks. So it's imperative that we move on and get somebody here trained to fill the position. I reached out to a young man that did an internship here with us. He'd been away for a couple of years, and we talked, I interviewed, and Aaron, I think, has a memo in the packet here for the hire.
So the job wasn't posted?
It was not posted citywide. We reached out to a person that was already employed with us in the past that did an internship. So the memo is to hire Samuel Harney as a utility cashier. Anything else? I can't
So is
pull the
that
memo
proper
up.
procedure not to post a position that gives citizens a chance to apply? We do have individuals that lost their job at Kentucky Bank, so.
We do, but it was my choice because we needed to do it fast because this individual's gonna be going away. And based on somebody that's familiar with our operations and procedures and what's going on.
So he's been in that position.
He is
before.
not, he's been in another department, but he's pretty much familiar with the whole operation in the city. You'll see the memo, I've got it now attached to the recommendation to offer of employment at the Utility Administration Department. Entertain a motion to approve his hire.
Motion to approve the hire of Sam Harney is recommended by Aaron and Mike Withrow.
Have a motion? It is second.
I guess my concern too is that it hasn't been posted, and I've had people reach out to me knowing that job was, vacant for so long. It's like, hey, when are you gonna post that? I guess I just have a question about not.
In the previous city manager was here, he didn't feel like that position he didn't need
It's
it.
been filled at all.
And we did get by, I'll be honest,
Sure.
the way bills come in, our bills go out the first of the month, it's really busy, then there's a little drop, and on the 15th, it gets really busy again, and then it starts up again, after the 24th or 25th, and it's kind of been overwhelming, especially with people being off sick or whatever, that nobody there to fill in. It's, in my opinion, it's a much needed position. As long as everybody's here, it works well, but when somebody's off or has something else to do. Of late, Cassie working with the meter change out, there's multiple things of entering data and stuff, so she can't just come up and fill in like she used to. So it's pretty imperative that we have somebody in that position to do that, and it needs to be more sooner than later.
And so
So
that's,
no, go ahead. If the former city manager didn't think it was a position that needed to be hired and you all have gone this long without it, why do we have to just put someone in place? Why can't it be advertised?
Well,
Well, part of the reason that we didn't fill it, I can explain that a little better probably, is we lost our previous clerk about 2 weeks before the COVID shut down. So for us, we were going to virtual, so it didn't make sense to fill a spot and then pay somebody to stay home. Right. So that,
I understand that,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
what I'm saying now is if it is a prevalent position that needs to be put in place, you've gone this long without it, so why do we just call someone and
we've
accept?
always tried to the reason we started the intern program, it started just with children of employees that were college age, and then we started an agreement with Paris High School to do juniors and seniors. And so Samuel was part of that group from the high school, and so the reason we do it is we want to hire them, and so we have some in the water department, but Samuel can't work in wastewater. So
that's right, his dad
yeah, so
is an employee.
so we try to keep those. That's why we do the internship with Paris, is to be able to hire those.
Well, I was thinking though, isn't DG a floater? So if you needed somebody kind of.
We have
In
a
meantime,
FMLA that's probably going to be closer to 12 weeks, and she's taken on different responsibilities with payables and having Debbie leave, and so yes, she is a floater, and she does go over on those peak days, but we just see a need, and they're struggling with phones.
That's fine, but you guys, this does not look good. You're hiring a family member. You understand that.
We can advertise. We can start over.
But it should have been that way in the beginning, because it's policy and procedures, and that's what was not followed. So I can't do it. I have to leave it on.
okay, we have a motion on the floor. If nobody's gonna second it, it'll die for lack of a second. All right, moving on. Financials, Brad.
Okay. On page 27, you'll see the cash balances for the general fund. At the end of July, we had $6.9 million in unrestricted or operating funds. Still kind of low on what we call the restricted funds. I know we did in August get some payments in on road aid fund, and so we'll start seeing that account balance kind of pop or start increasing as well. But then projects are set out there for the fall. Moving on to page 28, obviously we're just into 1 month of operations here for the new fiscal year. So just to real quick point out that on page 29, you'll see total revenues are right around $1,079,000 for the month of July. We had $1,222,000 in expenditures, leaving us a expenditure over revenues of $143,000. Obviously just 1 month, but not how the trends kind of go. Probably won't start doing projections until we get into September and start getting some trends for the first year and everything. And then the rest of the pages are just kind of revenues and expense details by department, so you guys kind of see where money is being spent by department. Moving on to page 46 is the utility fund cash balances. And from an operating standpoint, at the end of July, we have $2.4 million. One of the things that I tried to do in the unrestricted investment account that we have, in account number 601, that's where we deposited the $2.5 million loan fund for the water meters. And so what I wanted to do was start kind of breaking that out as far as how much we have left in that balance within that account. So moving forward, we'll see 2 line items until that money is completely spent out. Then also to, down in the construction fund, put a separate line in there for the ARPA funds that we have received. We do need to track those separately. We are allowed to earn interest on that. I didn't put any interest in that as of yet because I think we got that money in July 25th or 26th. So starting in August, we'll get interest allocation applied to that account. So, you know, looking at that, obviously the construction fund, we're up over $2 million in that account. So cash balance right now is at $4.9 million compared to $1.4 million at the same time last year. But obviously, I wanted to pull those two out so you can see where our cash balances kind of mostly consist of. Moving on to page 47 is the summary for actual to budget. As you'll see down at the bottom of the revenues, we've got the $1.2 million coming in the grant funds for ARPA, and then also some grant funds from the US 460 project over there as well. So total revenue is $1.9 million for the month of July. Expenditures are at $1.2 million or $1.3 million rounding up. So right now revenues are over budget in the utility fund for $668,000 for the month. And then for the rest of those pages on down to our pay claims is the detail for revenues and expenses for you guys.
Motion to approve financial, motion from Galvin, second from Mayor, roll call please.
Mayor Plummer,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And we have the approval of payment invoices.
Okay, so on page 67, you'll see the general fund claims report. Did do the summary and then also the detail as well again. So on page 68, you'll see that we need a approval for $280,774.07 on the general fund. We do have payments that are going out to dealerships for the police cars, both to Bachman, and then also Glenn's Freedom listed there. So that's why that total for general fund is high. And then also on page 73, we start the utility fund listing. That goes on over to page 74. So we need a total approval for $262,656.55. And just right above that total, you'll see a disbursement for $114,000 for Perfection Group related to the water meter project as well.
I need a motion for approval of payment invoices.
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Ms. Gibson,
I'll second.
second by Galvin. Roll call please.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Galbraith,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Mayor Plummer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to reports. Do we have anything from the chamber?
I just wanted to give you guys a retail strategies update. So we had a really good meeting, I thought, with Retail Strategies last week. They came here in person. They are starting to gather, well, first they kind of came without our input and gathered a catalog of all the vacant properties throughout Paris. Right now, just Paris, not Bourbon County, just Paris. And they've done a really good job at that. They really know the community. I'm able to just say, hey, this property over there by blah, 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 and they know exactly what I'm talking about. So they're doing a really good job at categorizing and cataloging all the properties. Our meeting with them last week was about why some of the properties are the way they are. They would say something like, hey, this would make a really good deli or something. And I'm like, well, they own the building 2 buildings down as well that is also a sandwich place. So like just different things like that like they just need the input on. We're moving forward with them. We're going to be meeting with Andrea via Zoom very soon, and also we're going to be meeting with Kevin Smith to talk about Millersburg very soon. I'm excited with what they're bringing together as far as marketing goes for our community. They see Paris the same way we see Paris. It's kind of like having this experience aspect to it. They will also be adding in the park information to their marketing packet, and the judge will be sending over what they've gathered so far as statistical information goes, because that's going to be a very important part of, I believe, what could be brought to the community. From the chamber's standpoint, we have our upcoming golf scramble, if anybody is interested in golfing soon. September the 10th. So we need to get that stuff confirmed from anybody that's interested in taking part in the golf scramble. I don't have anything else. If anybody has any retail strategies questions, I'm happy to answer anything. So that's all I have.
I was at the meeting and it was very nice. They've done their homework. They had a map that, had all of our, I guess, national, chains and things on it. So you could actually kind of, go through it, and they're doing a great job. They researched us well, and in that meeting, they were kind of getting input from everybody, what are we looking for, what are we missing in the community, and then kind of going back with the research that they've done, saying what we need. And Andrew had a really good idea about if we can't find a grocery store, doing a co-op, kind of like they have.
Like a good fruit.
Yeah. So that might be something.
I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
But thank you all.
Thank you.
And I'll share that map with you guys as well.
Andrew? Yes.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I always say I'm gonna keep it brief, and that never is, but, so I wanna start by sharing some good news, and I mentioned it on the retail strategies call. We did receive our, population number for the 2020 census, and we have exceeded 10,000 population, so Paris has actually grown. So that you could start telling people we're growing.
Yes, we're not stagnant. We're not losing.
And we are moving against the projections, and that's pretty amazing. That's something to celebrate, even though it was by a small percentage. And so there's a couple of things that means. I mean, first of all, as a community that does want to grow, it means we're headed in a positive direction. What it also means is that we will, in the upcoming year or two, have to start establishing a stormwater program through the MS4 program of the EPA. And so there are new federal requirements that will set in as a result of reaching that 10,000 population. Now we've met with some consultants in the past to talk about transitioning into that program, and you could spend all day talking about it. It's pretty in depth, but that's one thing from a planning perspective. We're trying to mentally gear up for that and figure out, how we need to mobilize to be able to implement a new stormwater program, which just essentially means we're going to have stricter requirements for stormwater with our development plans. The second thing I want to mention is that, and just to further drive home the point that yes, we are growing, halfway into the calendar year, we are seeing a 1/3 increase in the number of residential building permits that we've been issuing. Over the past couple of years, it has been fairly stagnant. It's hovered around 50 new dwelling units a year. And I will share more details about that in my biannual report. I'm a little behind on producing that, but there'll be more details on the median cost of construction and all that good stuff. So, another, good point to share. I will make you aware that we have a job posted for a part-time code enforcement position. We posted that on Facebook and in the newspaper. We've received a lot of applicants so far, which was like such a pleasant surprise. We weren't sure what the feedback would be on it, but the window closes on September 10th. We've given it a pretty large window so that we can cast a large net. So if you do know of somebody that may qualify, the job description's on our website. It's bourboncountyplanning.com, and then the application will actually be submitted to the fiscal court, because essentially the planning and zoning employees are we are personnel of the fiscal court. So all that info is on our website. It's on Facebook as well. We're really looking forward to that. And lastly, we do have one development application, preliminary development plan that was submitted for September. That is for a gas station / retail establishment at the intersection of Bellafato Drive and Georgetown Road, US 460. So if you're looking at Mead Tractor, it's to the property to the right. So that preliminary plan's been submitted for the September Planning Commission meeting, so we'll be reviewing that. If you want to see the application, feel free to stop by our office. And lastly, we just for future reference, we have been meeting for the West Side neighborhood. At the West Side Family Day, we had some like maps and some surveys, and so we solicited input from the neighborhood members and those that attended the event about what they would like to see for their neighborhood. So we're looking forward to reporting back on that in the near future. And lastly, the nuisance ordinance, that's next on our priority list to work through that. We did have several work sessions and a draft has been developed, and we're looking forward to bringing that to you all for vote very soon. So that's it for me.
Did you say the development was a gas station / what?
Gas station / kind of strip retail establishment,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. It is a preliminary development plan,
Right.
so the final will have a lot more details if they get to that point.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian.
Chief Roberts, you have anything?
Duly reported will be, the increase in population will be reported tomorrow in your favorite
Good deal.
newspaper.
I think it's 10,171.
I'm happy to report it extends beyond the city to the county. So for the first time in decades, we are beyond 20,000 in population.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Because I think it was 19 forever, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're stuck,
Great, yeah.
stuck on 19 plus.
Aaron, do you have anything? Stephanie? Sorry. Ms. Roberts?
The only thing I have is, everybody should, and I say everybody, Holly, you, Angie, and Mayor Wallace, and Mike, you probably got a copy of the draft from KLC on our strategic plan. So take a look at that. It's been 2 or 3 weeks ago. Time has a way of getting away from us. I had a follow-up conference. I let Tad Long, if you'll remember, he was a gentleman, he and a couple of people from KLC were here back in, believe it or not, June. But anyway, I talked with him and told him that we were kind of focusing right now, our focus was getting a city manager, that we weren't putting this on hold forever, but right now we were concentrating, and I told him I'd get back with him. But just take a look at that if you, on your spare time, if you put you to sleep at night or something like that, if you need a reason to go to sleep at night, look at that. And take a look at that, and if there's anything in there that you see that, I don't say it wasn't what we thought about, what you thought about, we talked about, just let us know, and or you can send it back to Tad, either one, okay?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, of course, I do have something. Every so often, you know, I know we're redeveloping our policies and procedures. So to put me to sleep at night, Stan, I have tried to go through it a little bit. And, you know, every so often I'll come across a question. So who I have reached out to at KLC is Andrea Schindelbauer, Maine. And so I was talking to her yesterday, and I said, you know, are there some trainings and things that we could do? We're a small town, and everybody knows everybody, and everybody's related to everybody. And so one of the big things that, you know, she and I talked about is that we are not a certified city of ethics. So they actually do a training Because, you know, we all get set in our ways and we kind of do things the same way over and over. So sometimes it's good to kind of have that refresher course to know, you know, even if we think we're not going against our policies, sometimes ethically, we need to look at something and make sure that it looks good to the community. And you can even get she said some cities go through this program. It's a 90-minute course. KLC would have someone come here. We would have the people on our ethics committee, which I think we're still missing one. So we need to fill that spot. But it would be the city commissioners, the manager, you know, the mayor, and that ethics board, that would go through this 90-minute course, and it costs $500, but, you know, they would come here or they would do it by, Zoom or whatever. And then, we would be considered a certified city of ethics. She said some communities actually will have a sign, you know, just like we're a work-ready sign. You can also say you're a certified city of ethics. So I just think that's something that we ought to look at.
Okay.
It's always good to have, you know, a little training.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we can think about that sometime in the future.
Yes, ma'am, will do.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I've got.
Mayor, do you have anything? Just a couple things I want to tell you all that, we call it cab testing. It's going on right now. A couple of times a year, well, twice a year, we have to generate to show that we have the capability of doing it. And it's supposed to be done when it's real cold, real hot, and definitely it's hot today. So as we speak, they are proving that we have the ability to come online and generate power. You probably already know this, the KLC conference has been canceled because of some COVID things. Stan, I believe the EDA luncheon for thank you for the grant award is Monday at Mustard CTL. I believe the RSVPs needed to be in yesterday.
12 o'clock.
We had a small power outage yesterday. The contractor working on South Main Street ran into it's called a cross arm. They're on the pole. It was completely rotted out, which was a good reason we're changing these out, but it failed with lines on it. The lines came together, blew. Power was out for approximately 30 minutes. Nobody got hurt. That's amazing because the arm and the lines fell on the guy in the bucket, but all are good, and we got power restored and they're moving on. That's just a little kind of what's going on with that project. It's always something on South Main Street.
As a side note, when I came in this morning, Electric had like 5 or 6 trucks and each one had a telephone pole and they were headed out Main Street.
They were planting them as fast as they can. Yes.
One more thing I did forget, I spoke to Carter Offit last week on a business matter, and he just happened to bring up that they, and this is from Perfection Group, they're replacing the meters, and he said that it's going fabulously. I think he said they put 542 on last week, which was more than what they were expecting. And he said he would be happy to give us updates either by email or, you know, come in and tell us. But he said
Yes,
that was
they
really
are.
positive.
They're putting them in. There's a little bit of a snafu that happened yesterday of the 500 meters. It's important we get them transferred out, but you gotta keep in mind, we're still billing people and going on with business. So that it's very important that data from the old meter and the new meter and our utility clerks get that inputted so we can go out and read the new meters. There's more moving parts to this than we ever realized, but Carter thankfully worked a major issue that happened yesterday. He worked it out. So Carter's been good work. I will need to entertain a motion to go into executive session for what Mr. Bowman said.
Pursuant to KRS 61.810.1F for discussions which might lead to the dismissal of an individual employee.
What's the purpose? I can't hear it.
Under section 1F for personnel matters that might lead to dismissal or discipline. Okay. Sorry, Paul. I'll speak a little louder.